It's very easy to be just lost in the midst of everything that is on the list to do, but it's continuous refinement, and sometimes it's the smallest touch. Often the biggest moments of creativity happen with me when I'm pushing the shopping trolley around the supermarket, where that line will come through my mind and I'll find the answer when I'm going around the supermarket. So but my mind is continuously on. I'm always considering what else, what if, how would this, there's all not pigeonholing or not being constrained with my creativity, but just allowing it to be on and just making those small incremental changes, enhancements, improvements continuously.
I am so thrilled to bring you this next conversation in the Dream Speaker and Dream Expert series of the Speaker Driven Business Podcast. My guest today is Peter Merrett. Peter is known for his brand, which is A House of Wonderful, and for bringing wonder to the stages of tens of thousands of people around the world. He is Australia's Keynote Speaker of the Year in 2024, and this conversation is simply wonderful. His willingness to show up as exactly who he is, to have actually found something that is so unique and so incredibly congruent to who he is at the core, and to make it work is something that I believe we can all draw inspiration for. Peter has dedicated his life to reigniting the spark of wonder and joy. From a chef to a multi-award-winning luxury hotelier, he is a visionary behind global brands celebrated for their humility, for the wonder they instill, for the hearts that they share. Peter has guided his teams to historical heights, twice claiming Hotel of the Year in the UK, winning the International Office Building of the Year for Tower 42 in London, and Best Customer Experience in the World for JLL Australia. But today, whatever day you're choosing to listen to us, this is not about Peter's accolades. This is about Peter Merrett, the speaker, and his wisdom and his insights that I know are going to reverberate across your mind and your heart for many weeks and months to come. Welcome to the next episode in the Speaker Driven Business Podcast. And I am so excited today because one of my favorites from an Australian speaker's perspective is joining us today. Peter Merrett, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. Good morning, Jacqueline. Lovely to see you.
So lovely to see you and to speak to you. Now, I'm going to ask with a question I ask everybody. Where in the world are you right now?
I'm in paradise, actually. I'm about half an hour south of Sydney in this little town called Como. So we're in the Sutherland Shire, 30 minutes, but underneath Sydney.
Love that. Are you actually by the beach then?
We're by the river. So
amazing. Oh, I love that so much.
It's pure bliss.
Yeah, we all need to find a bit of bliss, don't we? Peter, I in the intro that we've actually already been through, I spoke into your career and who you are now. But for everyone who is listening along, what I find really fascinating and most useful is, can you walk us through a story of how Peter Merrett became the House of Wonder and Mr. Wonderful? Because I don't think he started that. So can you kind of give us the story of Peter?
Yeah, thank you. It feels like I've found my way into the place where I belong, and part of that was surrendering to corporate life in 2018. So following my hotel and corporate career, this love of speaking and presenting, which used to be my greatest and biggest fear, turned into my largest love of having that chance to speak in front of audiences. And it became so overwhelming that it led me to leave corporate and my career behind me and actually set up my own business as the House of Wonderful. But it was, if anything, I've grown further into my character and allowed my character to continuously guide me. And one of my role models and one of my favorite films was Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And that led me to, I never wanted my speaking brand and my business to be all about me. It's all about the people that I'm helping and serving and guiding. So Peter Merrett and the House Wonderful came from the inspiration of Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. So bringing people to a sense of place anytime that they come to one of my experiences or whatever it is that I'm delivering and serving.
I love that. I love that sense of place and being in service to them and all about them. What I also love is the House of Wonderful, which is, and for everyone watching the video version of this, we can see glimpses of it behind you. There's a House of Wonderful, but I also last week watched you drop into character for Halloween. So tell me about that, because it was actually like visually very different, but I think it also aligns perfectly with where you sit in the world.
Yeah, I mean, Halloween was an experiment of sorts. But with anything like this, today I'm still practicing what I learned in hotels, which was what else can we do to this to make it even more authentic and realistic and an even better experience. So yeah, we turned the Wonder Room here into a fully themed, spooky Halloween setting. I went into full character. I just made it up as I went along with different coloured face paints and what have you, and went into full Halloween character. But as did everybody who joined the online Zoom gathering that we created. So everybody in the audience went to exactly the same level of effort. So it was a completely a unanimous and connected experience. It was absolutely fabulous. And as I say, sometimes we can run around in the busyness of what we do and do things by halves. And we were taught in hotels, everything that we did every single day, we went all in. Those two words have never left my mind. All in, go all in. So
go all in. And I think you epitomize that. Just touching there on your career prior to speaking, and there is this obsessiveness almost with you with all in and what can we add to the experience. Can you walk us through that hotel career? Because it's not, in itself, it's not exactly ordinary either.
Yeah, and it's funny how even though I left hotels a number of years ago, hotels have never left me. So it's kind of who I am, and it's running through my DNA. It's running through my heart, even through to today. But when I left school, I went to hotel school and trained professionally as a chef for 3 years. So I was fascinated with playing with fresh ingredients to create connection, emotion, and pleasure. But I realized that through the training put me off wanting to be a chef. But I left the kitchens and went into hospitality leadership and led various country house hotels in the UK, but still practiced what I learnt in the kitchen. So looking at all of the different ingredients in our day to make something more connected and pleasurable and emotionally connected. So
what's one of the greatest experience that you curated from a hotel's perspective? What really stands out for you from a heart perspective that you're so proud of delivering from an experience perspective before becoming a speaker?
The biggest thing that not only that I'm proud of, but all of my teams I work with in hotels was the word repetition. So every single day we put on the show for our guests who were checking in and arriving, and we did it continuously 365 days over and over and over again. But for each of our guests coming in, it was their first time or perhaps their return visit. So everything had to be as fresh and as organized and ready, show ready, as we used to call it, every single day. So our guests would only ever sense or see that it was our first time. So that's something that I'm most proud of. And if anything, it's the practice that I still play with today.
I was actually just going to say, that was a really good forming ground, I guess, for actually as a speaker, because you actually have to turn up doing one of the things we talk about with emerging speakers who are in this midst of everything's customized and tailored and built from scratch is actually you have to create an incredible experience, which means doing the same thing over and over again, and you will get tired of it potentially before your audience does. So that feels to me like it was actually a really good forming ground for you to make this transition into speaking.
Yeah, and it's some may think it's pedantic, some may think it's over the top, but it's just simple respect of the opportunity that lies in front of me each time I walk onto a stage to speak. I've always considered to the smallest detail, what else can I do to this to enhance the experience for the people who are in the room? So it's quite traditional that I will perform a closing keynote at events. And whenever I do a closing keynote, I always sit at the back of the room from the start of the day.
Yes. Can you walk through some people who are less familiar with why you would do that? Can you walk through the importance of that? Because I'm an advocate of that as well. Can you walk us through, for those who are a little bit newer to the industry, why that matters and what it gives you?
The greatest thing that it gives me is the depth of sense of the room. So fully feeling the room, feeling the atmosphere, having a good sense, the body language of everybody in the audience. But more than that, listening. I love listening intently to the words that have been said before me. So I'll listen to the words that the CEO expresses, or any of the key messages that's coming out of the theme of the event or the conference. And but by me being present to that, I'm fully aware of it, and I can often blend in different vocabulary and different sentiment into my message and reinforce what's happened before me. So if anything, a closing keynote, what an honor that is for any speaker to have that opportunity. So part of it is tying a ribbon around the whole day, the whole conference, the whole moment.
It's absolutely true. I say to people all the time, if you're on the closing spot, you are actually responsible for bringing it home.
Yeah. And in reverse, if I'm the opening speaker, I'll be there the day before. So I always make best friends with the AV crew who are at the back of the room, often the unsung heroes. They drive everything. All of the success on stage is in their hands largely. So I always go out of my way to make friends with the AV crew. But if I'm opening, I'll do the same practice. I can never walk into a room 15 minutes before I'm on, clip a microphone on and walk on stage and then leave. It's back to those two words. I'm all in with every single way.
Yeah. How do you think, I'd love to know a little bit of that transition, because you went from the corporate career, you decided to give that up, you decided to become a speaker. You didn't start with the House of Wonderful though, did you?
No, the House of Wonderful grew it was funny when I first when I left my corporate role and I was now a full-time speaker, people used to say to me, the question people always said was, what do you speak about? And I said, customer service. And people used to say to me, go and stand in the line. There's a lot of people in front of you. There's hundreds of people who speak about customer service. So I just, if anything, just allowed my character to grow and let the core of my personality fully come to life. And I realized that my sense of wonder has continued to grow rather than fall away, as the heart of my personality. Just with different experiences that I was having, the House of Wonderful started to come to the front of my mind. And I realized that that's where I was heading, but going further inside by creating a niche inside my niche, by being very clear and giving a very distinct flavor to my brand, my business, my message, helping people. Yeah.
There's a couple of things there do you think because you said, if anything, my sense of wonder has deepened. Do you think that's because you're actually allowing it to flourish and allowing it to have oxygen and allowing it out into the world? Do you think that's what's actually deepening it?
Yeah, I believe it is. And it's something that I just practice every day. And again, if anything, it's what we were taught in hotels, being entirely present in every single moment. So I used to struggle towards the end of my time in my corporate roles where that wasn't the case. And I needed that sense of presence, but really just allowing my sense of wonder to be on full beam always by being fully present in the moment.
Yeah. When you talk about, you allowed your character to start to show up and to start to take front of the center stage and to really grow into it. How did you know where the genesis of that character sat?
Of my character?
Yeah.
Again, it's a lesson probably that goes back to the training as a chef in the kitchens, was everything around the word permission. So I'm very open with the permission that I give myself to see, to feel, to touch, to hear, to notice the wonder around me. And it would be very easy for me to say, I haven't got time for this. There's more important things to be looking at and thinking. So I've always stayed true to reminding myself of the permission that I'm continuously giving to myself to be me, to be bold being me, and be very comfortable sailing in the lane that I'm sailing in. Because part of me could think, or maybe I should tone this down a little bit, or maybe I should change the descriptions of these kind of some of the things. But I'm always reminding myself of the permission to be me.
I think that's really important. You said, staying focused on your lane and the permission to be you. And we've had a whole conversation around permission with some of our people that you're involved in. One of the things that actually strikes me is there'll be a lot of people listening. This podcast gets downloaded around the world, and it's mainly emerging and aspiring speakers, or what I call plateauing speakers. And there's a lot of people saying, but the market keeps pushing me back into a box or a lane that I don't want. How hard is it to stay in a lane that is so actually clearly defined and so different to what expectations are?
It would be very easy just to go along with being pigeonholed into what we perceive others think we should do or say. But it's taking the trusting our judgment, trusting ourselves, having confidence in who we are and what we're doing, and not being afraid or not being apprehensive or scared to dare to be different. There's a lot of repetition out in the world. There's a lot of things where people copy or maybe copy is the wrong word, but think that because those people are doing those things in those ways that we have to do it. It's human instinct often that we often do or say what others do because everybody does or says them. There's nothing wrong at all with being the complete authentic version of you, your personality, and being proud of whatever the uniqueness of you and your message is, to stand out.
The thing that comes up for me there is, are there times when you've actually really had to hold your ground about your lane with well-meaning advice or opinions or?
Yes. And, it's something that I experienced in the latter part of my corporate career when I was bringing and inspiring hospitality standards into corporate. I was always surrounded by the believers and the non-believers, and the non-believers were often the people who would say things like, "We haven't got time for this fluff. This is all fluff," and I've kind of learned how to stay true to the course that I'm on and not be derailed by people thinking it's silly or unnecessary or whatever the opinion or thought is. So there have been different times, yes.
So the flip side of that, though, I guess, is the freedom that comes from actually, like you say, staying in your lane, giving yourself permission. Can you describe to me the lightness that comes with that? Like there's heaviness when you've got to come up against opposing forces. But what's the lightness, I guess, that comes with that and the freedom that comes with that?
Immediately that comes to mind, it's invigorating. Because the more you, it's almost like going fishing when you're trying to catch something on the end of the hook, and by letting the right people come to you. So I've last week I did the closing keynote for one of Australia's national chocolatiers. So it's a brand based entirely on chocolate and a culture based entirely on fun. And they were attracted to my brand because I've stayed the course. So it's we can't for anybody thinking of speaking or who's speaking, we can't speak to the entire whole world. Our message will appeal and be the right message for certain people, and that is really good. But it's utterly invigorating, Jacqueline, when you find the people that you just love to work with, or the brands or the businesses or the organizations who get it, who are enthusiastic about it, and who appreciate it.
You actually have a client that is super close to your heart that you go to the US for quite frequently. Do you want to share us a little bit about that and that history and what you really love about it? Because whenever you're there, we feel your heart, even through your socials.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, so this is BOMA International, the Building Owners and Managers Association in North America. They're headquartered in Washington, D.C. And I used to attend the BOMA International Conference with my team from London, from the property that I was managing, Tower 42, when we used to enter their international awards, when we won the International Office Building of the Year award with BOMA, the first building from Europe to win the crown. But since then, since we won in 2008, and I've moved to Australia since, I've always gone back to the conference. So this is just over a 20-year relationship. I've spoken at this conference for 20 years, every single year. And it's my community, it's my network. It is a family environment. But every leader and manager from the commercial real estate industry, there's on average about 3,000 people go. They're all there in the room. And if anything, it's my way to continuously adapt my message, try new things, bring you new sentiment each time that I speak each year. But it is absolutely fabulous. I just love every time that I go there. It's my annual treat.
And I really love I love the fact that it's your annual treat. I also just love the depth of relationship. And I think that's people coming into the industry can see it as quite transactional, but there is so much relationship, as you know, once you actually move inside the world of a client and make a difference. And the depth of that relationship is actually something that's important. When it comes to your touch points, your brand, the experience of Peter Merrett and the House of Wonderful, for those who are earlier in their stage, in their journeys, how do you actually go about building a brand like you have built over time? Where did it start and what were the key moments and decisions?
The greatest memory of the House of Wonderful, as through to the present day, is that I continuously take tweaks and touches and refinements continuously. So that when I first started, I was overwhelmed with the size and the scale of the things that I had to create and introduce and set up and get ready and all of the documents and websites and all the rest of it. But I always took a step back and took baby steps, if anything, as I still do today, just taking one little thing of refinement. Say, for example, my proposals, continuously just tweaking and refining the standard of my proposals that we send out. And just tweaking things inside the website, but not being overwhelmed by thinking of the enormity of the list of things that we have to do, but just continuously playing with it.
I have so much love for that perspective because I am constantly speaking to people about this is iterative. You're never actually at the end destination, whether it's your content in your keynote, whether it's what you're putting together from a collateral perspective, the build of your assets. Like people go, I'm going to get my amazing speaker reel and that's it. It's like, no, that'll be it for the next 6 months. And then you'll find something else, then you'll do something else. I think the more we can get people to understand it's iterative, the more we can take pressure off them is how I feel. What do you think about that?
Yeah, completely pressure off. It's very easy to be just lost in the midst of everything that is on the list to do, but it's continuous refinement. And sometimes it's the smallest touch. Often the biggest moments of creativity happen with me when I'm pushing the shopping trolley around the supermarket, where that line will come through my mind and I'll realize, I'll find the answer when I'm going around the supermarket. So but my mind is continuously on. I'm always considering what else, what if, how would this, there's all not pigeonholing or not being constrained with my creativity, but just allowing it to be on and just making those small incremental changes, enhancements, improvements continuously.
So when you started it was 2018 that you flicked over to speaking. So 2018 to 2024 is 6 years. And in 2024, you were awarded Keynote Speaker of the Year for Australia. Could you have seen that happening in 2018?
Oh, never in a million years. When I first joined Professional Speakers Australia, I used to sit at the back of the room. I didn't know anybody, but I listened, I watched, I observed, I took lots of notes, and then it just turned into my amazing community of my fellow speakers and peers that I adore. But no, never saw it could never have thought it was just, beyond my wildest dreams.
So for those, because that is a great trajectory, 6 years later, really doing the work that you love with people that you love, winning an award that is something that you couldn't have seen coming. For those that are starting, where should people start? Because I have conversations. In fact, I had 4 last week with people who I'm like, you're in the noise, right? And also going in the wrong lane because they see what others are doing. So what's the first point for someone to actually be able to create that almost niche within a niche, you said, or that unique lane? What should people start asking themselves or of others?
The immediate thought is to start and not put it off, and get really good at using a pen with paper. Is kind of one of my habits. So as things are continuously coming out of my mind and my thoughts, I write them down. So it might be a single word comes out of my mind, and I'll write it down, and then I just allow other things to come from it. But it's so important to start. And probably one of the most important things, I think, is just to be brave with letting things come to you. And one of my habits is that I've got a very small circle of speakers that I consider to be my inspiration, my mentors, my leading light. So there's 4 or 5 speakers that I actively follow and watch and observe. And I would just suggest that it's very easy to think that becoming a great speaker, we now need to look and follow everybody. But that can be quite distracting as well, thinking that we need to do all of these things where actually we don't, and just being true to ourselves. So I would suggest part of the starting process would be to create a little inner circle of 2, 3, 4, 5 speakers that you really love, enjoy, connect with. You like their stage presence, you like the sound of their vocal tonality, you like their gestures and body language and postures on stage, whatever it might be, and start following them. But keep it as limited as you possibly can.
I think that's important. There is so much, and a lot of it's just opinion and advice that can fly. It's like there's one, I guess, lane on a highway where we're actually watching everybody and watching too many. There's also a lot of opinions and advice comes flying at us. Speaking of that, most people who are looking to speak will be told you need to have a book right from the start. I have a very firm view that you need to be speaking for 18 months to 2 years before you even consider a book, because you don't actually know what the audience and the market wants. You've taken some time. You're about to release a book. Walk us through why it's taken to this point and what you've loved about this process and hated. but why did you take time and it was quite considered? I know the production of your manuscript has also been very considered. Can you walk us through those decisions around that?
I think the greatest thing with writing the book, it's been on my list, and it's been my biggest personal challenge of my life. English was my weakest subject at school. And so I set it as a personal challenge to see if I could actually do it. And yes, it has taken me 5 years, but I knew that writing a book of wonder had to be a book of wonder. It couldn't be something that I just put out in 2 or 3 months. So I've taken 5 years, and it has involved dozens and dozens and dozens of reunions with former teammates, former managers and leaders that I worked with and reported to through my career. Some who I haven't seen or spoken to for 30 years. So it's created some most amazing reunions and uncovered some incredible memories. And I've just allowed myself I learned how to take the pressure off myself with writing this book, and just grew to really love it. But I went further, where I realized that I was just heading off into, I was just writing loads and loads of words without any real purpose or structure. I found an amazing writing coach. So I invested last year into 10 months of working with an amazing writing coach. And she helped me find my voice and bring it to life in the most incredible way, like down to how I was restructuring sentences, paragraphs, making my point, whatever it might be. But she also shared that word permission with me. And we're just about to go to print and to launch shortly. And I'm just thrilled how it's turned into what it's turned into. It's the only book that I know of in the world that has no chapters.
Ooh.
It only has recipes. So it's a book called Wonderlicious, but it's a book of recipes with ingredients, with a method. So if anything, it's similar analogy to a cookery book where you can make any recipe into your own adventure, but being true to the beginning of my life as a chef, playing with those culinary analogies. There's no table of contents. There's a menu. So it actually looks like a formal fine dining menu with appetizers, hors d'oeuvres, main courses, and such like.
I'm looking forward to this.
Yeah. And it's been fully illustrated with like pencil sketch designs similar to Roald Dahl and Winnie the Pooh, just illustrated all the way through.
That's exquisite. And also, I would hazard a guess you wouldn't have been capable of that in the first year or two of this journey.
Yeah. Definitely, and I think part of this, Jacqueline, is there's no rules with this. If anybody says you have to have a book out in your first year or whatever it might be, that's just not real. It's an amazing achievement whenever you're able to do it. But I was just determined to do something that was different to other books. That it was completely real, had no theory. It was all based on truth and all based on things I've experienced.
Yeah. So we've spoken about the BOMA stage. Outside of the BOMA stage, is there a favorite that you have? Like it was an experience that blew your mind that is going to be on your heart forever. What's the next favorite from BOMA?
Oh gosh, that's the impossible question, and I'm not sure it's one that I can. I'm not sure I can, because
I almost feel cruel when I ask great speakers this question because it's like everything's amazing and they're so unique.
yeah, no, it's an impossible one to answer. However, I am extremely grateful for the variety of my work. 2 weeks ago, I spoke to a conference with two international hair brands. So it was a room full of hair salon owners and hairdressers, and it was just one of the most awe-inspiring events that I've been involved with for such a long time. It was vibrant, it was exciting, everybody was enthusiastic. But then, as I said earlier last week, 2 days with National Chocolatier. The variety. Yeah, exactly. But everybody who's just enthusiastic and grateful for my message of bringing wonder back to life. It's, when people are at an event or in an audience for the right reasons, rather than being told that they have to go to this conference. But sorry, that was a long answer to say it's impossible to say a favorite.
Yeah. What is it that is your commitment to making wonderful a thing again is visceral, right? We can feel it in what you say and how you show up and everything. What is the mission that underlies that? Why does this matter to you?
I think more than anything, I just know that my message isn't something else that people need to think about. It isn't another thing. It isn't the next thing. It's something that everybody who comes into this world is born with. Everybody arrives into this world bursting with a sense of wonder from, the little toddlers and younger children. And it's something that just starts to fall away into teenage years and adulthood. And it's just, if anything, almost feels like my purpose, the reason I do what I do, just to help people rediscover that sense of wonder. And I really struggle when I see people on the train or in airports or on the high street or wherever they are, where you can just see that they're either struggling or the environment is quite grey or ordinary, and just a determination to help people see it again. And with very little effort, if anything, but just to remember that it isn't something that's reserved for children. It's there inside all of us.
Yeah, I love that so much. Peter, when it comes to, we've talked about, being in your lane and the resistance and the advice and making sure you're not taking too much input from too many sources. What's been the most surprising piece of advice you've been given on this journey?
The most surprising piece of advice. That's an interesting word, isn't it? I'm not sure if it was surprising, but just the depth of impact that it had on me personally. And it's something I heard in the first year when I was speaking from a fellow speaker based here in Sydney, who was presenting and sharing his lessons, is that he said something quite profound, quite simple, but quite profound in that moment that has changed everything for me. When he said to leave everything at the door. And when I heard him say it, I wrote it down, and I've never forgotten it, because it's very easy when we arrive in that moment at the event, at the conference, at the stage of the booked as the speaker to just about to perform. It's very easy to bring all of the busyness that we've got going on in our life and our world in that moment onto the stage with us. And just hearing him say the importance of leaving everything at the door and just being entirely present in that moment. Nothing else matters more than that. So I don't know if it was a surprising piece of advice, but it was
definitely impactful.
Impactful.
What do you think it changed for you?
Just the clarity and the realization and the respect of what we do when we're booked as a speaker. What an honor that moment is, and that none of it is about us as the speaker. It's all about the people that we're about to serve or help, the audience that we're about to interact with. And that depth of respect is so very important.
Yeah, it's that level of being in service that I think when people first come into this industry, you came in from a service background and still that was impactful for you. And I think it's one of the things that we don't realize as we step in, that the platform is a privilege and we are there to serve. And we were there to add and to make a difference. In my world, most people know that I haven't spoken professionally for about 2 years. I've been coaching speakers 2.5, 3 years. But it's because in COVID, as a resilient speaker, it got very noisy. And all I was doing was adding to the noise. So I wanted to actually pull up until such time as I knew what I was going to come back with wasn't going to be just adding to the noise, and that it would make a difference for the people in the audience. And I think from that perspective, it's something I really want our audiences to take on board, because it is a privilege. And if you are not there to serve, or you're not capable of serving, because sometimes we have impacts, then just take a breath for a moment.
Yeah, definitely. And I can't emphasize this with more importance. I do. Obviously, I attend a lot of events, and I see speakers come in 15 minutes before they're on. As the applause finishes in the audience, they've already left, and I never want to be that person.
I remember sitting in an influence conference, and it was in America. It was Dallas. So that's 2018 or 2019. I can't remember what year. And one of the speakers was actually doing a presentation on, he was a prolific speaker, and he actually did a presentation on how he managed to do 3 time zones in one day. So America and Canada and back. And then also looked at how many he could get into a week. And I remember being horrified. I remember sitting there saying, number one, you're actually role modeling that burnout's a good thing, because you can't keep that pace up. Number two, I was horrified. I was like, how are you giving? If you're like on charter flights to make the next one on time, because you can't trust the timings with commercial, to make the next one on time, and you're racing in the door, and you can see the footage for the video he did, right? Racing in the door, changing jacket, mic on, onto stage. And everybody in the room was like, that's amazing, that's incredible. And I'm thinking, that's not what we're here for, right? It's not what we're here for. We are not here to show how good and prolific we are. We are here to be in service to the people. And I just remember being horrified.
Yes. And what you've just said there, Jacqueline, goes back into my 2 words, all in. The hairdressing conference that I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, because I did the closing keynote, they said, would you like to join us for the awards after part of the cocktail party in the evening, which I eagerly said yes. And I must have had about 30 conversations with people who went out of their way to share the impact that my presentation and message had. And if I had raced home and declined that invitation, I would never have heard that. I would never have had those one-on-one moments with all of those people who spoke to me through the evening.
Yeah. And this is the thing, actually, it just distinguished that particular room and that particular speaker was all about how good and amazing he was. And I say to people all the time, if people come up and saying, you're so good, you're so great, your story is amazing, you're incredible, you're so brave, you're so courageous, you've not cut it because that's about you. When people come up and do, as you just explained, at least 30 conversations talking about the difference your message has made, that's when you know you're actually in service.
Absolutely. So if anything, those conversations are the best part, when you know how you've reached through to somebody. So I all in. All
the way. I'm going to just ask you one more question, and it's a little bit of I was going to say it's a bit of a deeper question, but I think I've thrown a few of those in already. But as we wrap out this conversation for this episode of the podcast, if you could distill what you've learned into one sentence, what your core philosophy is? What would it be?
My gosh, what an amazing. There's a number of things flying through to my mind, but I think it's as simple as the answer that I was taught in hotels is daring to be different. Daring to be different is each day. It was our daily kind of mantra: dare to be different, dare to be different, and that kind of spilled out into every single part of our day in hotels, and I still play with it and practice it to this moment where With anything and everything that I'm doing in the House of Wonderful, I'm always daring to be different.
I almost feel like we need Peter Merrett House of Wonderful shirts with Dare to be Different. Like, I think it's so important. I love that it's come from a corporate career. It's followed you. And actually it is a philosophy because it's why you stand out.
Yeah. I nearly said about the word fun, about it's so easy to forget having fun. But it's so important to be serious about living and playing and working with a sense of fun as well. But blend that all together with Dare to be Different, and there's my little delicious formula that I play with.
I love that. I love that. And I think we should all walk away with Dare to be Different etched in our minds. Peter Merrett, thank you so much for joining us for this conversation. I've watched every minute of it.
Thank you so much, Jacqueline. Much appreciated.